without giving him a chance. Anyone who has will agree with what I'm about to say. Even at its best, life sucks. When you walk with Jesus through these painful, perilous times, life takes on a magic, a miraculous, a powerful, an unexplainable, unreplicatable quality that makes the pain make sense. And when you're young, you have a lot of questions. When you get older, you have more. It is nice to be able to turn to the author and perfecter of not only our faith, but of all truth, for the answers to the questions that our lives so greatly need. At the end of the night, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to ask people to bow their heads. If you have not started your walk with Jesus, and I ask you to raise your hand to give him a chance, please raise your hand. Thank you, guys. I'm laughing because if you knew what it was like to be me right now, you'd be so glad you're you. That's all I can say. That's all I can say.
I still love you.
And I love you just as much as I did the last time you yelled that out. Now, a little girl gets dropped off at school. She's in the first grade. Last job I had before becoming a rock star for Jesus, I was a first grade teacher. Hardest thing I ever did in my life. That's all I can say. There's a smell that never goes away, no matter how many years you get away from that room. I can still smell it every minute of every day. These little people are perfect. They're perfect on so many levels. Let's just talk about their skin. You know, I look around the room and you guys are all young enough to still have amazing skin. I'm a couple years older than you, and I think about breaking out, and I break out, and I think about worrying about a wrinkle and I get a new one. And I can like starve myself for 3 weeks and gain 5 pounds. I lived my whole life as skinny as could. So, and I have proof of that. I'm telling you, there's something about youth that is just perfect and flawless by its mere existence. That's why we are so envious of it. But this skin is so soft, and it has not had anything happen to it yet. So, you know, you have the occasional scrapes, and you know, maybe you have a broken arm or a broken finger or a broken leg. Really, very little happens to the skin when you're 6 or 7 years old. Now, I had a student who lost her eye that year because her younger brother with even better skin was swinging around a bungee cord, and it caught on her eye, and he yanked on it and pulled out her eye. So this beautiful, amazing child in the first grade had to leave school for the rest of the year to have several surgeries and then get used to having a glass eye for the rest of her life. Irony would have it that a friend of their family's was a photographer who did a photo shoot with Marilyn Manson, and my former student got pictures taken with Marilyn Manson for a Rolling Stone layout because she was willing to take out her eye for a freaky, gross picture. It's amazing. These pictures are the most horrific things I've ever seen. And I like this stuff. But it's not cute anymore when it's real. See, Marilyn Manson is just a dress-up doll for me. He's like some creepy Barbie. And I like the pictures, you know. I don't agree with what he says, but I certainly wouldn't mind stealing some of those fashion tips. But it's all fake. It's all fake. It's all fake till someone loses an eye. Then all of a sudden it's not fake anymore. And yeah, I kept those pictures because it's someone I know, but I can't look at them, and I don't think they're cute. I think they're sad. And she's an amazing child. She's adapted to having no eye. And she's fine. She was always fine with it. I'm not fine with it. Are you? I mean, does anybody ever say, well, praise God she lost an eye? But beautiful skin that had no marks, no wrinkles, no scars. And even if there was an incident, it would heal and there'd be no wrinkle or scar at that age. Now there's an eye missing. Now there's an eye missing. That can't be replaced except through a prosthetic. A really gross, you take it out when you go to sleep prosthetic. But we learn to adapt. I mean, you have to if that happens to your kid. I have 3 kids. I can't even imagine. You have like 1 million kids. Can you imagine it? But seriously, I mean, yeah, talk about someone who, every time I'm here, Cliff's over there, and I'm always like, preaching choir, preaching choir. You're going through health stuff, you know, and the first half of that word is hell. And, you know, you've gone through all this, and you have to have so much faith. You have to have a faith that your friends never had to have. That's the truth. And he won't run around saying that, but I say whatever I want, and I don't care. And when you have a sick child or an injured child, or God forbid you lose a child, you have to have a faith that other people never, ever experience. A little girl goes to school. She has her perfect skin. That's how I'm really jealous. You hear that? You hear the tone? That perfect skin. Yes, first graders smell bad. They're beautiful. They're so beautiful, it's like their ears haven't grown so much bigger than their head. Their eyes have no lines in them. They're perfectly white eyes around these perfect colors that we never see on grown-ups. Because as you age, your eyes seem to get blander and blander, just like your food. I've always wanted to try it. It's a good joke. Now I know it'll work with the right audience. But this perfect first grader goes to school one day, and she sits down for her morning lesson, and she gathers with her friends and her teacher, and in first grade they love going to school. They can't wait to go to school, especially if they like their teacher. And if you're a guy, they love you. Because you're the big guy in the room that's the Barney factor. I could have been a purple dinosaur for all they knew. They dug me. But they love their teachers. They love their friends. They love recess. They love getting stickers when you line them up at the end of the day. They have their hand out waiting for their sticker. Whatever. I could control 35 people with stickers. When they were gone, I started licking them. I was like, no, maybe there's something about them I don't know. But these things have power. So does candy. So does an extra recess. So does studying social science outside that day. So does postponing a math quiz. These things mean a lot to these kids. And as a singer, I sang with my class. I taught lessons in music, and then I wrote songs for the kids to sing. It was amazing. They were amazing. And yeah, some were better than others, but they were all amazing. They were all amazingly, amazingly amazing and perfect. And everyone said, how can you stand this? I said, because they're better than grown-ups. They're nothing like grown-ups, and they're sure as hell nothing like teenagers. Teenagers are like grown-ups that aren't in old bodies yet. It's terrible. You still have all your youth and you don't know it. You don't know how perfect and amazing you still are. You still have a chance. We're hopeless. But So a little girl goes to school, goes to first grade, has her circle time in her class. And circle time is like where you find out what you're going to do all day, and you talk about things, you talk about your feelings, and you talk about what you watched on TV last night, and then all of a sudden there's all this noise in the halls. And someone's walking into school because he thinks the best thing he can do that day is blow off these perfect faces with these perfect skin. That's what he's going to do today. And the sweet little innocent girl goes to school one day, and an hour later she's dead. An hour later she's dead. As an aside, I'd like to say, as an evangelist that has to prove the existence of God every day of my life, I find it to be such a pathetic and ridiculous obviousness when we're so quick to accept evil, and we're so quick to accept the hopelessness of our lives. People post all over the internet, how did this happen? Gun control, politics, no praying in schools, all the different things that caused this. What caused this is me. It's me. I'm a bullied kid. I had a really rough childhood, really tough relationship with my parents, my brothers, my whole family, and I've never had an easy time of life. And look what I've decided to do in my Christianity. I have never had an easy day. You know, I've had a few easy days. I've had sickness where I never left my home and never talked to anyone. Those were kind of easy days. I don't have a single complaint about any of this, but I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I'm blessed, I'm blessed, I'm blessed. I don't think like that. This is the life I have, and at some point, this was the life I chose. When Columbine happened, I said, thank God that didn't happen when I was a teenager. My parents owned a gun. If I'd seen that on TV, the next day, that's what I would have done. I would have said, this makes perfect sense. Grab a gun and go to school and deal with what it's like to have to go to school every day. Because I'm no longer a first grader with perfect skin with these beautiful, soulful eyes that can't wait to go to school. I'm terrified to be at school. I'm terrified to be at home. Give me a gun. Level the playing field. How many kids beat me up at one time at school? I mean, when kids are being bullied, it may be only 5 that are really doing it, but there's 20 that don't do anything about it. But then there's the whole school that exists. Your experience is you walk in and every day the world is beating up on you. Having a gun when it's one against the world is fair. It's fair. And we're all trying to point fingers at what everyone else has done wrong. And in the end, everyone else is us. Anyone who's been bullied has bullied before. I don't know more of an animal lover than I am. I know there's millions of amazing animal lovers, but I consider myself a supreme animal lover. I remember as a kid coming home and after having been beaten up all day and my cat coming up to me and wanting to play and kicking him or something. I would never do that now, of course, but it's got to go somewhere. The pain has to go somewhere, has to come out somewhere. And in this situation, you have a kid whose mom's a teacher, and a kid kills his mom at home and then goes and kills her students, basically, in his mind. And people are saying, why did he do it? Do the math. Do the math. There's no question. This is what we do. This is what we do. We're a violent species. We eat our chicken McNuggets and we don't care what those chicken went through before they were finally, mercifully killed. We don't care about sweatshops. We don't care about slavery. We don't care about genocide. We don't care. And you know why we don't care? We can't do anything about it. We can't do anything about where our food comes from. I try really hard to be a vegetarian, but most of our produce comes from environments where slaves are picking the bananas and the grapes. I mean, we have to take a blind eye to just about everything in this life just to get through the day. To me, that sounds a lot like school. That kid's being bullied, but as long as he's getting bullied, it's not me. I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget. It's Psalm 86. David cries out to God and he says, "Preserve me, for I am holy." And I was like, well, I'm done. I can never say that. I'm holy, God, so fix this. Nope, I'm negotiating. I did this for you. I did this for you. That's all I got. That's all I got. And if that doesn't work, I'm like, I'm cute. You know. But what I don't have is I'm holy. Preserve me because I'm holy. With the recent shootings in Connecticut, I want to say, I am someone who never talks about this stuff. Like I have friends here that the first thing they thought when I started was like, he's going to do that tonight? Because I don't talk about this stuff. I think the minute we talk about it, we make it worse because we make these people more famous. Like the Batman guy. You know what I mean? I think we make it worse. But, it is our culture. It is our lives. This is really happening. And it's happening every day. And what's happening that we don't see every day is leading up to what we're going to see one day. And it's just a matter of time till it happens everywhere. And I love the people who say this happened because we don't allow prayer in schools. And I always say, well, what about the people that blew up the churches? I think they allow prayer there. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure we can make that the rule. I'm not sure we can make that the rule. You know, I mean, I would think if a kid came back and shot everybody at school because of the cafeteria food, everyone would go, I get it. But
terrible.
And I promise you, you will see a court case in your life where someone says it's because of the cafeteria food and the lack of nutrients in what we're giving our kids that makes them go crazy and shoot people. That will happen in this life. I mean, it's already on it's called the Twinkie defense, and it exists. Look it up online, it exists. Yeah, I'm the guy who can make jokes about school shootings. I think it's amazing. It's amazing how much freedom God has given me in a world where freedom of speech has turned us into monsters. That we are so hateful, all we do is talk about them. Whatever our them is of the day. The Christians, the queers, the Muslims, in this case the parents, the government, the mental health facilities. I do not think you have to have a mental health issue to go to school and kill people anymore. I remember when road rage was a term. I remember when someone grabbed a live dog out of a car and threw it onto a highway with oncoming cars because someone cut him off in traffic.
Wow, what?
Well, if you live on a street where everyone has chihuahuas, you view that different, by the way. You know? All day long, give me one of those. Just give me one. Dog rage. I have a pit bull, and I just want to take him to where all the chihuahuas are. You know what I'm saying? But animal lover, over a period of time, everything starts to make more sense. You trap people in cages, eventually they have nothing to do but to snap. They have nothing to do but to snap. So in reality, the best you can offer a situation like what occurred last week is, but for the grace of God, go I. You know, like this happened, and only because God has been so good to me that this hasn't happened, but I'd like to put a big fat yet to that. That you may never pick up a gun, please, and you may never be in an environment where someone comes in shooting, please, but the madness and the pain and the abuse and the neglect and the inevitability of such an event will most especially touch your lives. And anyone who has sat watching someone die of cancer or AIDS, or knows someone who's succumbed to Alzheimer's or dementia, will understand when I say living your whole life to the end doesn't really mean a whole lot more than getting it snuffed out when you're a little kid. It just looks really different because we're all on this horrible path. We're all on this horrible path. And along the way, we watch people suffer and die needlessly and ultimately. Aren't I uplifting? I was really, if you'll forgive me, angry that I was coming here after such an event. Because I could have wiggled out of this if it happened next week, because I probably never talk about it publicly. I've barely talked about it privately. I've talked to my kids about it, and that was about it. And by the way, what I said to my kids was, I love you. That's what we talked about. I love you. You know, I'm glad you're alive. You know, make sure you tell people in your life you love them. And make sure you tell your friends who need to talk to someone that you're there for them. There's no point in trying to figure out why this happened. By the time we figure out why it happened, it will have happened so many times it won't seem weird anymore. I remember once upon a time where we didn't have a term called going postal. Now it's happened so many times. You know, another post office, another office place, and now it's the schools. This is what we do. We humans do this. We go into environments and exact our revenge for some reason if we are not created different. If I say, my pit bull is really sweet and cute and friendly, everyone will go, well, of course, it's the master, it's the owner that turns them into monsters. It's the same thing. It's who's your master? What kind of person are you going to grow up to be? David said, preserve me, for I am holy. And this really stuck out in my mind when I was praying about tonight, that it made me uncomfortable. Just, how old are you? 14. You have perfect skin.
Go back to.
Say you're 7. I was 12.
I have said for my entire career, I wish I had a camera behind me that was filming what it looked like to me. And I have this sweet angelic creature looking up at me, and I'm glad you can smile because I didn't know. And he's looking up at me, and I'm like, wow, am I going too far yet? You're okay, right? Okay. You're a good sport. I'll give you my candy cane. Oh, I'm not giving you my candy cane anyways. Oh. That was just a flat out lie. No, I don't part with my candy, man. Because I'll go postal. Don't make me get all pit bull on you. So it made me really think about tonight and what I was going to say. And what I want to say is I want to be done soon. But before I get to that place, I have to climb a mountain. And the mountain is holiness. When you go to school, or go to work, or just leave your house, or my favorite, are just at home, do you feel safe? Do you think you deserve to be safe? Do you think everyone deserves to feel safe? Do you think everyone deserves to be safe? Do you think safe exists? What do you actually believe? I don't know what I believe. I don't think people are safe. I don't think I'm safe. I think if I'm safe, it's because the Holy Spirit protected me more than I'm automatically safe just because I think I am. I've escaped death so many times that I feel like the odds are not in my favor more than in my favor if I get into a pinch. But I believe in my heart that I will ultimately live as long as God can truly use me in this life. However, I don't believe for a second that there's a moment where he can't. Therefore, my theory just went out the window. I don't have the answer to why we die and when we die. All I know is it's not good. All I know it's not good. My cat died a few months ago, and I can't even think about him without getting choked up. And all I can say is that's because of sin. Not my cat's sin, because he was perfect. But because of sin and death, our animals die and we eat hamburgers. That's a fact. That's a fact. There was no death. Nothing was killed prior to the fall of man. Nothing got sick and died prior to the fall of man. Therefore, everything bad that comes into the category of sickness and death and tragedy and loss is all because of sin. And that sin isn't going away until Jesus takes us away. So it's not going away. Therefore, we will always be subject to sin and death and loss and sickness and our animals dying. And that's just terrible. Terrible. But how do we live in a world where our friends pick up guns and go to school? What's so interesting about this event is it covered the age gamut in a way that I don't think we've seen before, because the person who was the shooter at 20 was still really young. I mean, I know at certain age groups you don't think 20 is really young, but when it's only a minute and a half, which is what a year and a half is to me, of being out of high school, it may as well have been a high school student going in and shooting first graders, which would cover the school gamut. And the thing that really stuck out of my mind was there was no place to hide in this story. He didn't go after the kids that were bullying him. He didn't go after his peers. He went after a separate group of people that he didn't even know, but for a third party that wasn't even present or alive for the event. And therefore, by virtue of the entire event, nobody is safe from it. Nobody is safe. That it's not random, but it could be so close to being random that random might fit for events of the future. You know, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it coming down to, are you safe? The question is, are you in the right place? And the theology of right place at the right time is so convoluted that anyone who thinks they're an authority on being perfect in God just prove themselves wrong. Because the Bible does say, if I submit to the Lord, He will guide my steps. Well, God guided Jesus' steps, and that didn't end pretty. So, at some point, one has to step back and say, this all comes down to eternity. Because that's the only time we know we're in the right place for sure, is eternity. In this life, it's a gamble, and it's a step of faith. But in the next life, it's for sure. Are you holy? And what on earth does that mean? Because in my mind, holy and pure mean the same thing. And I lose. I lose. I'm the potty mouth speaking, Marilyn Manson listening, R-rated movie watching evangelist who processes for Jesus, I think purity is not happening good for me.